Okay. All right. So we are in the Torah portions. We're unpacking or unfolding the generations of our ancestors, matriarchs, patriarchs, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, Yaakov and his wives. And first of all, there's a lot of history. Most of their history is not in the scripture. We look at what the scripture is trying to teach us specifically, because those are lessons that are for not just lessons of history, but are seen as lessons for posterity. And in this course, we're not talking so much about usually about the story going on, but we're zeroing in on a detail of the story, which is it's a detail of story in the scripture, so it's got to be important, but it's not the story. But we're using that as a portal to be able to learn a lesson. And one of the reasons for that is, in case it wasn't clear, is because a lot of these things are taken from the Rebbe's talks. And the Rebbe he would speak in the last years. He spoke every Shabbos for hours, thousands of people around. And one of the things he would always do is focus on the Torah portion. And he would ask questions about, okay, so the primary commentary Rashi, this is the flow. He mentions this. Why does he comment? Why does he comment this way? So it was in order to understand the depth of verse by verse of the Torah portion, and they're latching onto one of those talks. So let's just get an overview. I'll bring up.
What page are we on?
It's going to be on page 110. Okay. And the Torah portion is called Vayetze. And last week we had pretty much what we know of Isaac and Rebekah, Yitzchak and Rivka. And at the end of last week's Torah portion, Jacob, Isaac and Rebekah's one of Isaac and Rebekah's twins, and the other twin is Esav, who is he's a rough guy. And Jacob, Rivka suggests to her son Jacob to skip town because she has heard that the twin brother wants to kill him. So she says, "No, I want to save you. Go to my brother who lives in Syria, Turkey. His name is Laban, until things calm down." That's how we ended off last week. The scene opens up this week. It says Jacob leaves his hometown of Beersheba, which is more in the south of Israel, and journeys to Haran. Haran is today there's a place in Turkey, and we think it's probably the same. On the way, he encounters the place. That's the way the Torah describes it, and sleeps there dreaming of a ladder connecting heaven and earth with the angels climbing and descending on it. So he has this dream. He's camping out. He's on the run, falls asleep, and he sees this vision of angels. God appears to Jacob and promises that the land upon which he lies will be given to his descendants, because he's still in Israel. In the morning, Jacob raises the stone on which he laid his head as an altar and monument, pledging that it will be made the house of God. In Haran, when he gets to Turkey, Jacob stays with and works for his uncle Laban, tending Laban's sheep. Laban agrees to give him his younger daughter, Rachel, whom Jacob loves, in marriage, in return for 7 years' labor. But on the wedding night, Laban gives him his eldest daughter, Leah. He does a switcheroo there, and he wants to marry the younger daughter, and she's veiled, and it's night, and I guess he wasn't too swift in that department, and he ends up marrying the older sister. Deception Jacob discovers only in the morning. Jacob marries Rachel too, a week later, after agreeing to work another 7 years for Laban. So he's got 14 years committed in labor. Leah gives birth to 6 sons: Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zevulun, and a daughter, Dinah. And Rachel remains barren. So she's got 6 of the eventual 12 tribes of Israel are born. Rachel gives Jacob her handmaid, Bilhah, as a wife to bear children in her stead. and two more sons that Naphtali are born. So it's not Rachel, but it's Rachel's surrogate, so to speak, somewhat. Leah does the same with her handmaiden Zilpah, who gives birth to Gad and Asher. So now there are 10 sons, one daughter. Finally, Rachel's prayers are answered, and she gives birth to Joseph. Jacob has now been in Haran for 14 years and wishes to return home. So now there are 11 sons, and he says, I got a family. I have assets. He did well there. But Laban persuades him to remain, now offering him sheep in return for his labor. Jacob prospers despite Laban's repeated attempts to swindle him. After 6 years, Jacob leaves Haran in stealth, fearing that Laban will prevent him from leaving with a family and property for which he labored. Laban pursues Jacob, but is warned by God in a dream not to harm him. Laban and Jacob make a pact on Mount Galeed, attested to by a pile of stones. So now all this is the bulk of the story. A lot of family dysfunction going on, a lot to explore. But we're going to talk about two things here. And it says Jacob proceeds to the Holy Land where he's met by angels. He's met by angels when he comes back to Israel, and he sees angels on the way out. He has a dream. So we're going to talk about this whole thing of Israel and angels and what it means for our lives. So before we go further, I want to just share an insight into the concept of Israel, which I think they should have included in here, but they're good, and maybe they know something I don't know. But before we do that, Israel, the Torah makes it clear that Israel is our land, it's our homeland, it's given to everyone. So okay. It's a land where a synchronized life, material life, which is synchronized with spiritual meaning and higher thinking, you're poised for it in Israel. Living in Israel is seen as, the epitome of being able to lead a focused, balanced, meaningful life. Some people would say that's why we all have a mitzvah, 613 mitzvahs. Some people would say one of them is we should all live in Israel. I live here, and I love Israel, and I'll go in January, God forbid, God willing. I will go in January. But the idea is that we see Israel as certainly holy, and we stand up for Israel, especially in these days. It's our place, even if you've never been to Israel. Every Jew has a place in Israel. That's the language of Jewish law. But Israel conceptually goes beyond that land. We're not negating the value of the land. I want to be very clear about it. But Israel is also a concept of living an actualized life in New Jersey. So I want to read something to you here. We'll read together. It's not in the workbook, and I really think it would have been smart. Okay, a story. Once a follower of the third Chabad Rebbe, his name was Rabbi Mendy, he's the Tzemach Tzedek, he lived in the 1800s, requested permission to immigrate to the land of Israel. He explained to his Rebbe that he yearned very much to immerse himself in Torah and prayer, and that this could be better achieved in the Holy Land. The Tzemach Tzedek, who lived in Russia with his Hasidim, he said, we must make Israel here. Make this place the land of Israel. And in the original Yiddish, the expression is Mach do Eretz Yisrael. Make Israel here. What does that mean? Rabbi Menachem Mendel wasn't negating that Israel is a very special place, and he was raising money on a consistent basis for the settlements in Israel. All the Chabad Rebbes were. Back in the 1700s, they got into trouble actually with the Tsar because they were sending money to the Ottoman Empire. I mean, that was one of the reasons they were imprisoned. So Israel is obviously Israel, and we're not just going to conceptualize it. But in addition to Israel in the concrete sense, there is something for us to take home about. I'm not in Israel. I'm not planning on living in Israel right now. So what am I supposed to do with Israel? Israel is about making my life here the concept of Israel, meaning actualized. On a literal level, this chassid, the follower, was expressing a desire to further his spiritual growth. He was a man who strove to ascend to higher levels of holiness and yearned to be surrounded by the spiritual atmosphere of Israel. When one is surrounded by holiness, a spiritual stature stands to benefit. So he wanted to go and kick up the meaning quotient in his life. Yet the Tzemach Tzedek the Rebbe did not grant him permission. The message of the Tzemach Tzedek was, this place is a potential Israel. It's Russia. Ain't going to be Israel. But if you're looking for actualized living, you could do it in Russia, you could do it in New Jersey. It's your task to make that a reality. What is more, the Tzemach Tzedek's advice made it clear that the chassid belonged in his place of residence. That was where he meant to be. Granted, the land of Israel may be holier, yet the chassid belonged in a place that was not yet very holy. So here, what this is saying is that I'm just I don't know. Something tells me there's. I'm just gonna mute. Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry.
That reading refers to something that we had in an earlier lesson. Which is, no, seriously.
Yeah.
In terms of you are who you are.
Right.
Not a matter of fatedness. And it's up to you to define what you create.
Pretty much. Absolutely. So here, what it's saying is that you have work to do here. I would love to live in Israel. I think that I got work to do here. What about the people here? Why didn't the Rebbe move to Israel? He had a lot of work to do, and outside of Israel, and especially when his work began, being in Israel would have limited him. He couldn't be in touch with the Soviet Union or so on. But of course, he spoke about Israel all the time. But the idea was until Mashiach comes, and we're not in Israel, and we have work to do here. Make Israel here. Again, this does not mean to replace Israel with New Jersey. It means to look at my life that I can have the Israel concept living here. Okay. Having said all of that, let's get into not the weeds, but into the text. Okay. Hello. Okay. So this is at the end of the Torah portion. It says, Jacob went on his way, and godly angels met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's camp, and he named the place Machanaim, a double camp. Why was it a double camp? If you remember, in his dream, in the beginning of the Torah portion, he saw angels going up, he saw angels going down. Why? Because they coming down to protect him. What's going on? So what we'll read, and what the primary commentary in the Torah brings up right away and explains it, is that every angels are divine energies. Get away from Hollywood. It's that they're God creates energies, entities who are totally surrendered and doing God's work. And for example, every time we do a mitzvah, it says we create an angel. Why? Because you're exuding a good energy. So, and the flip side, there actually used to be a prayer. I don't think people say it anymore, but in the Talmud would say that before you go into a bathroom, you say a little, not a prayer, but like a little a formula, speaking to the angels around you because you do mitzvahs. Say, I'm going to the bathroom. You stay here. I'm going back. Because it's part of the mindset. Okay. So Jacob had angels. He had angels in Israel, and that's what Rashi says. And then when he came to the border, and now he has to leave, the angels of Israel are different than the angels of wherever of Lebanon, where from Beersheba he went in. Let's say it was Jordan. So other angels came. Angels went up. It says they were going up and coming down. Going up was the angels of Israel who were guarding him, going back home, going back to their base. And then angels coming down, the outside Israel angels guarding him. That's the way Rashi puts it. That's a Torah idea. So let's take a look at this.
Okay, but
yeah,
since angels are sort of transcendental, Why would they have to be a camp?
Well, it's not a camp. I was saying, well, wherever angels hang out. I don't know. And I was saying, there's somewhere they kick back and have a beer. Okay, text 3a. Angels that serve in the land of Israel are not permitted to serve outside of Israel. Similarly, angels that serve outside of Israel are not allowed to serve in the land of Israel. So that's the general concept. That's why we have when Jacob is leaving, and God is saying, I'm protecting you. So there's this imagery, which you don't find, even though it must have existed for other people too. But here's the time it's emphasized, he's leaving Israel. So on his way out of Israel, there's a changing of the guard of angels. When he's coming back into Israel, there's a changing of the guard. Because, as this one says, you can't leave your turf. Because it's a different. Yeah.
Supposed to be delivering a message?
Not necessarily.
No.
No. They're delivering, they're God's agents. So in this case, they're God's agents of security. Right? So, and that comes up. Yeah, message, it happens. But what you find more in the Torah is the idea that they're working for the company. And the God sends angels to protect us.
Secret Service.
Yeah. Very secret. Okay. So now, text 3b. When Jacob, now this is from the Medrash. When Jacob arrived at the border and was about to enter, God summoned the angels that served Jacob in the Holy Land. He said to them, Jacob's about to return. Let us go out to him. Okay, so it says, and remember, he says, he's coming now from his father-in-law and his uncle. He's coming back home after years, and God summons the angels of the Holy Land because now they got work to do again. He's coming back into Israel. Let's go out to him. Which sounds like, in the language, it sounds like go out of Israel to meet him. Even though we just said that camps of angels need to be in their turf. To what this may this be compared? To a king whose son traveled abroad to marry. Many days later, when he returned to his father's palace, his father told his guards, come, let's go out to my son. Similarly, when Jacob was about to return to his father's home, God summoned the ministering angels and said, come, let us go out to Jacob. Now I want to go back to text 2, which is 113. Say, let's get into this two camps thing. There were two camps of angels. When Jacob traveled to Mesopotamia, angels from Israel protected and accompanied him. Okay, he's leaving Israel, he's going to Turkey or Syria, whatever, and the Israel angels take him to a point, to the border, and then the other ones pick him up. When they arrived at the border of the Holy Land, the angels from Israel departed, and the other angels from descended to support him, to escort him. But on his return from Laban's home, it seems a little different. The angels in whose care he had been entrusted accompanied him until he arrived at Israel's border. And when the angels from Israel sensed Jacob's impending arrival, they left Israel to greet him and escort him back. In other words, the Israel angels, they went into the other turf, into the non-Israel turf to accompany. That's what the way the language of the Medrash, that the Israel angels weren't confined to Israel. They went to meet him and bring him back. As it is written, the godly angels met him. Thus, the two camps of angels were standing near Jacob. That's why it says a double camp, because they were both there at the same time. Let me just go back to that.
Okay, but that raises
I want to just finish this one. Excuse me 1 second. This is God's camp, and he named the Machanaim a double camp. Why is it a double camp? This one is still here, then it goes, and then the other one takes over. It seems like that on the way back, there was a time as he got closer to the Israel border, that he had two camps, because there's the non-Israel angels guarding him, and the Israel angels came out to meet him outside of Israel. Yes.
Okay, that raises another question.
Yeah.
Okay, rather than being ethereal beings,
Yeah.
is it possible that what are defined as angels here could actually be what are now called tzaddikim?
The Hebrew word malach is used, and it's used in the next week's Torah portion, and it means a messenger. But here we were talking about specifically in his dream going up and down the ladders, and it says angels of God. So it's hard to, I mean, it's an avenue you can pursue. I don't know if anyone does that, but you can break new ground. Okay, so text 4a.
I do.
Okay, why not? Text 4a. This is from Maimonides. Maimonides tells us, actually, before I get into this, there is a whole field of Jewish law. There are numerous fields of Jewish law that people like me living in Israel have to deal with. I never have to do. And I've known this from my teenage years. Israel has a bunch of laws applying to Israel that are not here. And one of them is you're in Israel. Why would you leave? So there's this idea of you can't just go. Why are you going? You're going because you like New York better? Jewish law says stay in Israel. Fine, you go to a lot. You'll find something there. So Maimonides says it is forbidden to travel from Israel again for an Israeli, not for us. If we go to Israel, we're going to visit. Obviously, that's not our home. But someone who was born there, lives there, it is forbidden to travel from Israel to the diaspora, which is what we call the land outside Israel. The only exceptions are to study Torah. So I had a lot of Israeli students in my class because they came to study Torah, but then they went back. To marry, the same owns property from Gentiles. He's talking about Gentiles because that's the way Maimonides, assumed the idea of where property can be threatened. It's the Gentiles. But in other words, if your business interests are threatened, then this you can leave Israel. Then you have to return to Israel. One may also leave Israel for business purposes. However, it is forbidden to leave Israel with the intention of settling permanently in the diaspora unless the famine in Israel is so severe that a dinar's worth of wheat is sold at 2 dinars. When do these conditions apply? When one possesses financial resources, but food is expensive. However, if food is inexpensive, but a person cannot find financial resources or employment and has no money available, he or she may leave and go to any place where they can find relief. So if we don't have no money, you don't have to stay in Israel and starve. Go. So there are exceptions to this. But the home base is ultimately Israel, where you would like to be. In the Code of Jewish Law, well, the author of the Code of Jewish Law, on the spot, he has a commentary on Maimonides. He writes, Maimonides writes that one must return to Israel. By this, he means that even if one was allowed to leave, they may not settle permanently in the diaspora. So they're just saying, well, one day I'll go back. Okay. Good. Let's take this to an example. Text 5a. The Talmud tells us, Rav Asi had an elderly mother. Rav Asi is a rabbi of the Talmud, whom he left behind when he moved to the land of Israel. Rav Asi grew up in Babylonia, and he moved to Israel. After settling in Israel, he heard she was coming to join him. He came to Rabbi Yochanan, and he said, may I leave Israel for the diaspora? Now, what did he want to do? She's coming, so what was he doing? He was going to go meet his mother and bring her, right? It's a good son. In 1947, when the Rebbe's mother made it out of Russia, he went to Paris to meet her, to bring her home to New York. He's a good son. So he's leaving the diaspora to take care of his mom. And Rabbi Yochanan replied, it is forbidden. He said, is it different if I'm going to greet my mother? Rabbi Yochanan replied, Asi, which was his name, you want to go. May God bring you back in peace. Now, what is the point there? And what do we hear? This, he said it was okay. It wasn't just because of your mom. Because Maimonides doesn't mention as one of the exceptions to honor your parents. Yeah, my mom wants me to come to New York. Zoom. But it's not one of the exceptions. The exception here was because why was he leaving Israel? He was leaving Israel to come back to Israel. He was leaving Israel to help his mom come to Israel. So the intent of leaving Israel, the concept, in a way, what we say over here is that Rav Asi lived about Israel. So the fact that he was outside of Israel, he was going to get his mother to bring to Israel. He actually never left Israel conceptually. He left the border. He had to show his passport, but this was all about Israel, going to bring his mom. So the intent matters, and where our head is. So similarly, when it comes to Jacob, what happened to Jacob? The angels from Israel left Israel to escort Jacob back to Israel. There was no prohibition against leaving. Why did Jacob leave? His mother sent him out of Israel. What was the point? The point was to save his life. That's a good reason to leave. But it was also about he's going to go and try and build a family. Now he's going to try and build himself a life. But he's always with an eye on coming back to Israel. So when he was in Turkey and Syria working for his uncle, his mind, not only was his mind on coming back to Israel, his mind was also on how do I, in this Turkish or Syrian environment, how do I live Israel? What can I do to lead an actualized life? He wanted to create a family and an upstanding family, a monotheistic family, a moral family. That's all Israel to him. And therefore, and now he was going back to Israel. So when he was going back to Israel, the angels coming to meet him, it wasn't about leaving Israel. They were going to embrace his Israel. It was saying here that in text 6, there was no prohibition against leaving because they went like Rav Asi when he left Israel to escort his mother to Israel. They went to bring Jacob back to Israel, but it's not only because he was coming to Israel; it's because Israel was his life. He was creating an actualized life, and now he was taking it to its nth degree and actually living in Israel, coming back to live in Israel. Go back to Jamaica. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look in text 7. I want to get into our lives and how the Talmud and the Jewish mysticism sees us and in the course of our lives, whether we live in New Jersey or in Dubai or in Bulgaria or even in Israel. Talmud says, Rabbi Elazar said, the only reason God exiled the Jewish people among the nations was for them to be joined by converts. So even though we're exiled, even though we're dispersed, even though that's not a good thing, because the Babylonians came and sacked Israel, and then the Romans came and sacked Israel, and now we're all over the place. This rabbi of the Talmud says there's an advantage. The advantage is there's a lot of meaning to be found out there. And just living in Israel doesn't give us access to the world. So they said converts. First, it means in the literal sense. What's a convert? In Jewish thinking, a convert is someone with a soul that doesn't have an external Jewish image to it, not born to a Jewish mother, but for whatever reason, it has a latent Jewish identity. And conversion helps unlock that Jewish identity, so that convert was always potentially Jewish. That's the way the Talmudic language points. So how in the world are we going to find those people out there who are Romans and Babylonians and Idumeans and Spanish and everything? How are they going to ever have a chance to join our people if we're all secluded in Israel? That's right. That's what we're doing. But the thing is that it's specifically to be out there. Now, it also means something else. that God created a world with tremendous potential for meaning. Not just Israel, the whole world has potential for meaning. How can anybody access New Jersey's potential for meaning if they're all living in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv? You got to live here. So the dispersion is not just about human converts, which it is. It's really about us finding these morsels of meaning. So to go further, the Torah states, "I will plant the Jews in the earth for my sake." The only reason one plants a small measure of seeds is to harvest many bushels of grain. This language from the verse in Hosea, and what Rabbi Lezer is saying is God sees us as seeds. We're planted here in New Jersey. Why did we end up in New Jersey? My parents came. We all have our reason, but we believe in a divine journey. Say, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm planted here, and I need to grow fruits. I need to make my life, make God's investment worth it to bear fruits in bringing meaning to the world. So we were taken from Israel by the Babylonians and Romans, but in God's mind, you'll be planted elsewhere to create an actualized life, the Israel you were taken away from. Even though, yes, you go back to the geographical Israel, but the thing is that we are all given the mission of leading a meaningful life wherever we were planted. If you look at text 8, this is a little bit more Kabbalistic. Yeah. Buckle your seatbelt. So before we get into this, I think I mentioned before, every country is seen as having its own spiritual character. It's like it's represented in like more concrete form as it has its own angel. There's an angel of Canada, an angel of Cuba, and an angel of Egypt, and an angel of the United States. In other words, it has its own character. The idea is, in text 8, that when Adam was driven from the Garden of Eden after sinning with the forbidden fruit, many souls and sacred sparks fell below to a place of fragmentation and division. In the Garden of Eden, everything was good. Everything was put together. Everything made sense. And then it fell apart. What does it mean it fell apart? The human condition became a challenge. The human condition became a mix of good and not so good. And it's up to us to separate and find the goodness within us and within the world. God exiled us amongst the nations to extract these souls and sparks. When dispersed among the nations, we can repair the sparks that fell among those nations. When we are exiled to a country under the aegis of its ministering angel, all the children born to us receive Jewish souls that were embedded in that nation and its archangel. Since Adam's sin and everything shattered. So I was born in New Jersey in the United States. My kids are born in the United States. I'm not wishing that I would love to live in Israel. But the fact is they have something to accomplish as children who are born outside Israel. And their challenge is to say, I was planted here. How am I going to grow? How do I make my life actualized before I move back to Israel? Because I don't have to. This is the deeper meaning of our sage's statement. Jews were dispersed among the nations to be joined by converts. The statement refers more broadly to all souls and sparks that are born to us while dispersed among the nations. They are all called converts because they come from a distant foreign space and are drawn back to holiness. So in a way, in a conceptual way, I'm a convert when I go to Israel because I was raised outside of Israel. And therefore, my thinking is different. My attitude is different. But that's exactly the point. To raised an American kid with Reggie Jackson or whatever, baseball, living an American life, but saying 1 second, my North Star is about being a Jew. So when I go to Israel, I'm an outsider in a way, but also I'm an agent of Israel. I'm an agent of doing the Israel thing in New Jersey. Because that's where God planted me. I didn't choose where to whom to be born to. And we say that's part of the divine plan.
So does the New Jersey angel go with Israel?
It's a good question. I think that with this, yeah, it does. And they'll probably wait somewhere over the Atlantic, you know.
Yeah, I think. I'm serious.
And I'm serious. Yeah, there is this idea that there's always this angels with us, and we just said that the Israel angels and the outside angels are not. I would. It could be one of two things because I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I'm just gonna guess with you here. Okay, it could be like Jacob that takes me up to the border, or I'm going to Israel. I want to connect with Israel. And so maybe the Israel angels come together, like it did with Jacob. Okay. When a Jewish child is born in exile, a spark formerly embedded in our host nation enters the Jewish body to serve God through Torah study and prayer for 70 years. They'll use 70 years because that was the idea of an average lifetime. It doesn't mean that was specifically 70. It is similar to someone who converts and takes refuge under the wings of God's sheltering presence. So here, this is from the Rebbe, trying to bring it home for our lives. Were two types of angels. When Jacob traveled to Mesopotamia, angels from Israel accompanied him in Israel to empower him for the task of lay ahead of him in the diaspora. The angels who came to greet him upon his return were created by Jacob's success in transforming the diaspora into a pocket of Israel. These were permitted to enter the diaspora because Jacob transformed the diaspora into a mini Israel. He was living in Syria and Turkey. He was living conceptually in Israel, like the third Lubavitcher Rebbe told to his follower, make it Israel here, by drawing Israel's sanctity into the diaspora. So here, what we're saying is there's this idea of looking at a situation, looking at where we are and how we're situated, and say, how do I make this? How do I find God's purpose? Let me hear. If you Google, there's one of the hostages was named Sapir Cohen, a woman. I've heard her speak. It's amazing, young lady, and she says that she came when she was in the tunnels. She was terrified any moment that she was going to be killed, and even though she wasn't religious, she knew some stuff, and she started saying, "God put me here for a reason. I can't just be a victim. I have to do something here." And there was a 16-year-old girl next to her, and it became her job. She says, my purpose here is to calm this girl. And she braided her hair, and it was actually, when I heard her speak, she said first they were hostages in an apartment in Gaza. Then they came and said, we're taking them to the tunnels. And the girl, she got scared, and the 16-year-old girl got terrified. And she said to her, why are we going there? So she said something to the effect that, well, we came to see Gaza. One of the main attractions is the tunnels. She was trying to help this girl out, but she tells how it empowered her. That's called making Israel where you are. She was in Gaza, but the idea is an actualized, synchronized life. Let's look at key points. On 124, sorry. I'm sorry I didn't get this further. Okay. It is forbidden to leave Israel under ordinary circumstances. If we go for permissible reasons, we are required to return. Number two, however, leaving Israel to recruit or escort others to Israel is not considered leaving Israel. Since we are traveling for the sake of Israel, wherever we go, we are in Israel. Number three, God dispersed us among the nations so that we would collect the divine sparks embedded among those nations through our good deeds, prayer, and Torah study. This creates pockets of mini Israels in the diaspora. Number four, we often think we live where we do or visit the place we visit for reasons that further our interests. When we arrive, we discover a task that furthers God's interests and makes it a holier place. Retroactively, we discover that this was our main reason for being there. We all have a purpose being where we are. our situation is we didn't just find ourselves here. There's a purpose. Number five, when we recall that God scripted our lives with His challenges and successes, and that He dispatches angels to protect and empower us, our challenges become more meaningful and easier to overcome. And if there are any questions, okay, cool. Okay. Okay.
So, God gifted our lives with
Yeah.
their challenges and successes. Number one, there's a chapter like this is your life kind of thing, and what's going to happen during that.
Now, I think, I probably would have written this different. I don't know if God scripted our successes because it's something that's our choice. But at the same time, God scripts some of the assets we have. Whether I'm born with a high IQ or not is not up to me. Whether I'm born with a talent for singing or not is not up to me. So God scripts that, and God definitely scripts challenges. We're all just take before we get anywhere. Every human being in their personality has strong points and challenges.
So, A, one. B, maybe Z is your passing.
Right.
And in between are just God script various roads. So if you have given a choice, you choose now you're like, so A1, I'm gonna go that way, or A2, I'm gonna go that way. But
It's more
ultimately you're gonna end up here.
I think that, and it's a great question. I spent a lot of time when I was in graduate school trying to figure this out. Not that I did, but I at least I made some headway. It's more complicated than that because if I have free choice, okay, right? I believe that Malti is my soulmate, Bashet. What if I had chosen to leave the religion and go to live in an ashram somewhere? There's no way she that wasn't going to happen. And unless God forced her to do it, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that it's kind of, I think you alluded to it, is that there are numerous paths laid out for us depending on our choices. But within the panorama of what's laid out for us, yeah, those are the things we're either going to accomplish or not. But that's the goal, and certainly we're equipped to certain things, no matter what, and what our choices are, and our decision, our choice comes to be able to make something of what we were given. So, but I think the question is very good because just to say, and there, I remember when I was in graduate school, I was reading some of the, it's very simplistic to say everybody has one soulmate. If everybody has one soulmate, then then that means everything was scripted. That's not the Jewish way of thinking, right? So there are options depending on which door I open, the doors I open in my life. So I imagine there are a bunch of different doors, like moral doors I could have opened in different ways in my life, and the way things could have worked out. That's why it's very complicated. That's why I never signed up for the job of God. It's very complicated.
So back to my
Yeah.
question, maybe I should have said A to Z. Am I still gonna end up at Z? But I
don't know if God knows where you're going to end up, but you're not forced to end up there. I think you have a few different options. Because otherwise, if someone decides they're going to sit on their couch and scroll Instagram for 40 years, then they're going to end up someplace, right? Is that right? But that has to be an option. It's a moral choice. So it can't be defined. If someone has Golda Meir who accomplished a lot, it's hard to say that she was destined to be that. That was one of her options if she made the right choices.
So to play off of John's question, the term God scripted our lives, I would see into that. He gives us certain talents,
Right,
and capabilities,
right.
like you said, singing, whatever it is. and then you.
I
think that's scripted.
I would say if Maimonides had written that, we'd have a lot to discuss. I think some 18-year-old wrote this. It's not a good language. God doesn't script our lives that way, but I understand. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Required to go back to Israel then?
It says then that the whole world would be like it.
Okay.
Oh, no,
Not necessarily, or?
no. So New Jersey, it's not. The Medrash says that the entire world will acquire the sanctity of Israel, and therefore, I conceptually I have to shift my thinking that this is now, basking rich Israel, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean uprooting your homes.
I think Israel become the whole world.
Andrea,
What?
were you going to ask something?
He was Spain.
No. Okay. So be well, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you, Rabbi.